Well, hello everybody, and I'm delighted to be joined here today on the Tech Trailblazers Founders on Fire podcast and videocast by Tony Craythorne, who is the CEO of our Cloud Trailblazers winner, Bamboo Systems. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Rose. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you doing since we
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Good. Well, let's dive straight in and find out a little bit more about you guys as winners, because obviously you are cited as a Cambridge-based company.
Correct.
But obviously you're British by your accent. I'm sure everybody will have twigged onto that one. But you're not actually in the UK at the moment, are you? You're based in California.
I recently moved from California. I now live in just west of Vegas, about 20 miles west of Vegas, in a place called Summerlin. But I still have a place in California, so we kind of hop between the two. But yeah, we're based in Cambridge. All of our operations are based in Cambridge. I obviously haven't been there for a while. I used to spend at least a week or two per month in Cambridge, but I've got a flight booked in June, and I'm hoping to be able to go back over there this time.
Well, fingers firmly crossed.
God, I hope so. I'm so done with COVID. I hope so.
Oh, well, I think the whole world will second you and third you and fourth you on that one at the moment. So we can talk a little bit about that. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about Bamboo and tell us about the company and, what made it shine through in the Trailblazers in our cloud category.
So Bamboo, we've launched and are shipping the world's first enterprise class ARM server, and the server market, it's a huge market. It's my addressable market. It's about an $80 billion market, and it's dominated by legacy x86 Intel based or AMD based servers. But if you look at a server, especially the back, look at the back of any HP 2U server, it's still got a keyboard port, a mouse port, a VGA port, a serial port. That's when you used to plug dot matrix printers into things. The architecture hasn't really changed. The processors have got bigger and obviously much bigger and more power hungry, but the actual architecture of an x86 PC hasn't changed. What has changed are the workloads, where today the workloads are highly parallel, everything's containerized, AI, ML are leading the way. And Intel chips weren't designed for that. So people are just throwing more and more compute at the problem. That's leading to another problem, which is data centers today will take about 4% of the world's power and energy, and it's getting worse. And we thought that there's a better way to do it. So we launched an ARM server with it. The numbers are incredible. We're saving on average about 75% power usage. We're saving about 80% on density, and we're about 50% of the cost of a typical Intel server. And everybody thinks ARM servers aren't going to be a thing. Just go and ask all the major analysts now. There's all the data now that's showing that ARM servers will become bigger than x86 servers in the next 10 years. IDC predict that ARM servers will be a $100 billion market by 2030. So yeah, we've launched the product. It's going fantastically well. I know I'm never going to talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, I've never seen anything like this. It really is going really well. I'm very lucky.
That's very cool. It has a cool name as well, because I like panda. So tell us what that stands for, because we do love a cute, cuddly panda. So it's not just great technology; it's also really cute. Which is what a winner.
We're having so much fun with this brand. We got bloody pandas everywhere. I did a LinkedIn post with a drunk panda on it, and got 4,000 views. I've never seen anything like it.
It wasn't the same as the lawyer with the kitten, one of those amazing filters. That, because I think you can push it way beyond, because I think he got millions and millions. So I'm really not a panda, and I'm definitely not drunk.
Yeah, we're just having so much fun with this brand. Panda. It was a gal that used to work for us in product management contacted me and said, we need a name for our architecture. And I said, well, how can we use Panda? And then I just literally came out with parallel arm node designed architecture and bamboo server with Panda architecture. But it's a real architecture. What we've done is completely redesigned the blade and the inside of the system to optimize it for ARM. And when you look at a 1U server from any other vendor, inside there you get one server. Where our server is a 1U server, but there are 8 fully functional Linux servers in there with their own CPU, memory, and storage that can operate independently or be clustered together, which is why we get such massive throughput and such incredible density. We get a lot more compute and a lot less space.
So I was going to ask you actually when you were talking about that, but in light of that, yeah. I'm going to have to ask you about why you called Bamboo Systems as well, because and it wasn't just so you could have a product called Panda. No. But does this have an awful lot of, obviously that it's very positive from an eco perspective that you're not using as much power, but I presume that also means that the heat that is generated for the same compute power is considerably less. And we all know that heat in data centers is a huge problem.
Yep. So we've got, I've got a slide that I use, and my sales team uses, that shows, it does a direct comparison against us and a Dell configuration. And we're coming in terms of power, about 75% less actual power. And that saves hundreds of thousands of pounds in terms of energy cost. But then our thermal output is 80% less than a typical x86 server. So the environmentals to run Bamboo servers are so much less. So not only we're drawing less power, but we're also emitting far less heat. And so it's just a far more cost-effective solution. And then one of our first customers, who happen to be the world's 7th largest company, I mean, you can't make this up. And we're working out who that is now. Well, it's a very large oil and gas company, let's put it out. So we, they're under legislation to reduce their CO2 output. And they contacted us, and they actually did the calculations on sorry, my CMO is pinging me, even though she knows that I'm on this.
Hi, Victoria.
Yeah. So they contacted us all excited before they placed their first order. That they calculated how much CO2 emissions we will save in metric tons, and it's absolutely nuts. It's we're saving about 75% compared to an x86 equivalent. Everything's coming out about 75 to 80% cheaper, believe it or not. And so we went and had some fun with it. We went to the website that they showed us, and we did some calculations. If somebody were to replace, and this will never happen in real life, but if somebody were to replace their entire data center with Bamboo servers, it would save something like 480,000 barrels of oil per year, or it's the equivalent of about 350,000 less people flying from Heathrow to JFK. It's quite staggering, the savings on CO2. And as everybody moves towards net zero, obviously, being able to reduce that carbon footprint is a huge part of it. It's something you're going to see us really pushing that message.
Yeah, well, totally, and that certainly is going to be a consideration for people. And interestingly enough, when we first set up the Tech Trailblazers, we had a sustainable IT category, but over time it became such a common part of the whole infrastructure conversation that it didn't really make sense. So you probably would have won that as well if we'd have been still doing that. So you could have almost got a hat trick.
Yeah, would have been pretty good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So anyway, I did threaten to ask you why Bamboo Systems. Why did you choose the name Bamboo? And I'm going to make you responsible unless Victoria wants to pipe in.
I'll tell you the exact truth. The company when I joined, we were called Kaleo, and when my wife couldn't spell Kaleo, trying to send me an email, I realized that we needed to change the name. So we got a good friend of mine and my chairman's who's brilliant at branding. We ran an exercise over a couple of days, and we started coming up with all these names. And this is exactly how it happened, Rose. I'm sat in the room with my chairman and a few other folks working through it, and he just leant over to me and he went, we should call it Bamboo. And I looked at him like he was crazy or whatever. But then we carried on noodling through it. And the more we thought about it, looking at the company's objectives of being far more energy efficient, being good for the environment, being able to get more compute and do more for less, all things pointed back to it. And I'm a firm believer, as is my chairman, that whoever owns the brand is going to own the market. We wanted to do something different. We wanted to be cool. On the front of our server, we've got a piece of real bamboo on the front of the server. It's very, very unique on the face.
Sounds very grand designs to me. You sure you haven't got Kevin MacLeod on there, retainer perhaps?
It's really cool. And as I said earlier, we're having so much fun with this brand. We really are.
Good. Well, fun is always good, and it sounds like it's going very well as well as being a lot of fun. So let's have a look at your sort of journey. So that's about bamboo and how it's come about, and a little bit more about how it fits into the whole data center, the cloud, that whole environment. So let's talk about Tony. So how did you end up being in this sort of situation? Because I'm seeing you've got a sort of a bit of a storage background, having been with Nexan and also at NextGen before they were acquired, and then Comprise prior to that. So tell us how you came to being the CEO and one of the founders of Bamboo.
So my background is, as you can see, I'm a recovering sales and marketing guy. I started my journey, my career as an inside sales, as an engineer actually, but they kicked me out of that after about 3 months of moving into sales. But I started off working for distributors and resellers as a sales guy. I just made my way up. I worked for a pretty large reseller called Computer Center for a while. I've still got a lot of friends from there. And then made my way to what was the world's largest storage distributor, a company called Bell Micro. It was actually Idle Hardware at the time, and I ran sales. I ran the enterprise sales for Europe there. They're the company that moved me over to the US. They moved me to San Jose, and then I spent literally my entire career in channel. We're working within the channel. But then I moved across to the dark side and went to Brocade. Ran global channels there. I ran the global mid-range business at Hitachi Data Systems, and then went off and started doing the startup thing, which is something that I really, really enjoy, because working for small companies, you can really have an impact. If you're working for a huge company, you've got to rise above the noise a little bit. But I did all right. I did a few various startups. Some went well, some not so well. But at Comprise, I was very happy there. We were probably one of the fastest growing software companies in Silicon Valley. But then I got the call from my chairman. My chairman, he got approached for this job. His name's Jeff Barrell. He's very, very well known in the Valley. He's been my CEO twice before, and he's a great personal friend of mine. And he got the call. He'd just taken the role of CTO at Hitachi Vantara. And but then they made him exec chairman and asked him to go find a CEO. God knows why he chose me, but because I'm a first-time CEO, etc. But I'm very, very lucky that I've got people like Jeff and others who I've been able to learn from. I try to model the way that I work and run the company in the same way as the best people I've ever worked for. And sometimes I get it right, sometimes I probably don't. But yes, I'm enjoying it. It's fun. It's hard work. And over the last 12 months, it's been incredibly challenging. But it's fun. It's fun. It's good.
Yeah, well, we can talk about that a little bit, but around the whole startup side of things too. But talking and listening to your career, I kind of I got the impression, I mean, because obviously Jeff and his colleagues are not daft. They've done very well, not just in their choice of you, but I'm wondering whether it's not the perceived, but the importance of the channel for Bamboo as being part of that. The fact that you really, channel, chop you in half, and there'll be the word channel sort of etched inside you. Is that where you guys are seeing the future? Because direct sales is a challenging role model. It's not role model to take. It is traditionally the American way, primarily, certainly in the States, but certainly your European background and also my experience of it is that you aren't successful in Europe unless you can develop the channel. There's no point just trying to knock on doors yourself.
Correct. So my theory of building a channel is it's like raising a small child. Is you have to feed it, educate it, get it standing on its own 2 feet. But the one thing that I know, and if the CEO of any of our distributors or VP of sales of any of our distributors watch this, they're going to shoot me. But I know that the channel will never make the market for you. We have to do that. So our strategy is I always, and this is a strategy that I've always deployed when in my sales and marketing works I did, is we are a direct touch organization, i.e. we go out to generate the demand. We go out to generate the leads, but then we're 100% channel fulfillment. So we don't take the deal direct. The only deal we would take direct is we've got a growing OEM business. So we're dealing with companies that are integrating our product into something else. We will sell that direct. But I've just always been a firm believer that if you can build it, if you've got the right partners and if you build it and you can show them the path to success of your product, you amplify your sales effort by thousands of %, right? And because of my background, because I've always worked with partners, I'm so lucky. The same partners come with me to every job that I have. And they get behind me. So we've got fantastic distributor over here. We've got fantastic distributor in Europe. We've got one in India, believe it or not. These guys are incredible, Zengra. And we're getting knocked on the door all the time, for new relationships. And then we've built up a network. We're not over. I don't believe in going to sign 500 resellers. It's easy to sign a new reseller. It's a lot harder to get them selling. So we've been very selective who we're working with from a bar standpoint to get the right partners. And go figure, there's no mythical server and storage channel out there. They're all the same people selling the same products. So our job is to help them grow their margin, their market share, and their customer satisfaction. Having run resellers and distributors, they're the things that I woke up and thought about every day. So that's what our sales effort and our product strategy is how we can, help them make more money, get new customers, and have very happy customers. So if we tick those boxes, we'll do okay.
Good. Well, that's good to hear. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So now let's give you some stargazing, seeing as you've answered all the other questions far too easily. I've got to give you something to think about. So from our perspective, one of the things is, we're 10 years old now, so we've been kicking about, working with amazing companies like you and putting a bit of a spotlight on you guys and some of your predecessors who, with the halls of fame of, very well stocked with some pretty amazing companies and pretty amazing people. So if we look the other way, not looking back on what we've achieved, but perhaps looking forward, Tony, what do you see are going to be some of the things that we're going to be talking about? If we have this conversation again in 10 years' time, and you're either with Bamboo or with another startup, what will be the things that we'll be discussing? What will be the trends that you think will unfold over the next 10 years?
I think that the whole clean tech energy side of things is going to become more and more prevalent. I take it for granted that this bloody thing Siri goes off all the time, right? Artificial intelligence. Look back at I can take a phone call on my watch now. That was something that you used to watch in Star Trek, 10 years ago. The machine learning and AI are going to change, I believe, are going to change the dynamic on every part of technology in ways that we don't even know yet. We take things like Alexa for granted. Nobody cares how it works. You just say, Alexa. Fortunately, mine's switched off over there, otherwise she'd go
I was going to say, don't say anything because mine.
Okay, yours is right there. I switch it off. I keep it off now. But it's really hard for me to predict where that technology is going to go. The whole thing around genomics and sequencing. I very nearly disclosed something that I shouldn't have done then, because a very large genomics firm just bought some of our servers for one of their new products, and I nearly said what it is, and I shouldn't. There is so much
exclusives now. Looking
no. There is so much innovation going in ways right now that we couldn't have even imagined 10 years ago. It's really, really hard for me to sit here and say, this is going to be the next thing, this is going to be the next thing. Look at NVIDIA, a GPU company. They built a product for gaming, and now look, they dominate. They literally dominate everything. They are the biggest chip manufacturer in the world. Who would have thought that 10 years ago? So I'm dodging the question really badly, but it's really hard for me to predict. In my particular sector, in 10 years' time, if IDC and Gartner are right, and I'm still in business and I've executed, hopefully, I'm sitting on top of a pretty big company that has changed the market, because Intel has dominated everything. Hyperconverged came along, but that's still Intel. What's happening now around ARM servers could literally be a paradigm shift. One of our biggest customers actually sent an unsolicited email saying that, same oil and gas customer, that Bamboo servers will create shockwaves through the oil and gas industry, and because of the way things have to be done now. So, it's really hard for me to predict. Really hard. I answered that really badly.
No, I think you have to. I put you on the spot a little bit with that.
Yeah.
And now to sort of turn it to the same sort of time frame, but to look at, obviously you've been around startups for a long time. We have been dealing with a global pandemic, which obviously has impacted everybody, both on a personal level, professional level. There is no part of our lives that hasn't been impacted in one way or another. But, obviously that's driven some businesses to basically accelerate, some obviously stalled. It depends very much, unfortunately, on where you sat in that sort of whole dynamic of the shift that we were experiencing and are experiencing still. So obviously not just the technology landscape will change considerably over the next 10 years, but potentially the way that startups are. So correct. If you were setting up Bamboo in 10 years' time, what do you think would be the challenges perhaps that you're not facing now, or what would be different, I suppose?
So this when was it? March last year we went into lockdown, and I was actually in the middle of raising money. I was talking to a couple of VCs. A typical startup. We didn't have years of cash. We only had months of cash, etc. But we were doing pretty good, and then the global pandemic hit, and I'm just sitting there with my head in my hands, thinking, now what? Literally, now what? We're not a big company, but I've got, every employee and their family are relying on me. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell do we do? I'm so lucky. I've got fantastic investors and a fantastic board, and they re-upped. And we put some money into the company. But what it's taught me is, as a startup, is because, we're used to this now, right? We're sitting here on Zoom. I never used this before. I'd talk on a conference call, but I never used video. And I think it was a month or two into COVID that I'm sitting there thinking, I haven't seen any of these people. I don't even know whether they're, in the office, in their home, or where they are. So I did a mandate. I forced the entire company, and everybody hated it, the entire company to go on this video and switch a camera. And watching people's hair was quite incredible. One of our engineers, one of our engineers could develop this huge head of hair like I've never seen before. It's pretty easy for me. I clip it. But what it's taught me is you can do business anywhere now. You've got the ability, because of this, because of Zoom or whatever video conferencing you use, you've got the ability to sell anywhere. So, I recently hired a guy that's worked with me 3 times. This is our 3rd company. I don't know why we keep punishing ourselves. Guy called Andy Hill. He runs sales for me, and I hired him originally to run European sales, and I was going to do the selling out here. But then I stopped and thought about it and thought, well, Christ, I can these first meetings you have around, you would usually have a sales team deployed, geographically, but now everybody's so used to this, you can sell anywhere. So I think the opportunity for a startup now is you can get a global reach. You can get to a global customer without having to have people in country or locally at that point. And I think that just gives everybody the opportunity to accelerate their sales. We've done business in the US, in Europe, in Saudi Arabia, and in Asia. We've already done business there without me or anybody having to get on a plane, which is what would usually happen. So, I think a startup now has got a true opportunity to target a global customer base from absolutely anywhere, because nobody cares where you are anymore. And what you also have the opportunity to do is hire the best people. I've always been somebody that's a big believer of always hire the best person for the job, no matter where they are. But when there's a corporate headquarters function, etc., people always want to be by HQ, right? I've never believed that. I've always thought hire the best person. But now the opportunity to do that, because when you're a startup, the people you hire are the most important thing. That if you get that wrong, you're buggered, right? That's it. You've had it. But now you can hire the best person. You can talk to them daily. You can get to know them. You can chat, regardless of where you are. So I think that's the only good thing that's come out of COVID, to be honest, is it's changed the way that we work and we communicate, and this has become, the norm. And I don't think it's ever going to change.
So it is a level playing field. I mean, we were very fortunate that our awards never focused around, black tie dinner, anything like that.
Yeah.
I watched people having to shuffle their business models. So we always liked the idea of being global. And the only way to do that was to kind of run it as a virtual award. So
it worked really well. There's I posted on Facebook and my company posted it on LinkedIn. We won another award, and I had to sit in my at my desk with a tux on. And again, I had my tux on, my dicky bow, and
today. What's going on?
No. But I had my shorts and my flip flops on. I was sat like this, accepting the award, and that's how I was dressed. It was a bit odd actually, but it was funny.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. So, we're talking about awards. What did it mean to you to win a Tech Trailblazers Awards? Because you're a very relatively young company. I'm not sure where are you with your fundraising at the moment?
We're still pre-Series A.
Oh wow!
Yeah, still pre-Series A.
So that's reasonably unusual. We have a fire starters category, which is based on being very young, so 2 years and pre-Series A funding. But in reality, we tend to see that the winners of a category are Series B to C. 3 to 4 years old, so you're a little bit ahead of the curve. What I will tell you though, Tony, just to look, not that I like to have a crystal ball, but we do kind of find that within the 6 months to 12 months after winning, people do tend to do quite a big raise. So
not
that I want to kind of try and get an exclusive scene here first, but I wouldn't be too surprised if those VCs might be knocking on your door again now, rather than you having to do the other way around.
Well, we are, one thing about being a CEO of a young startup or of any startup is you're always fundraising. So, I seem to spend half my life talking to VCs at the moment. So, we're very lucky that I've got fantastic investors. We've got money in the bank. We're in good shape, but we are fundraising always. So yeah. But to us this year is about we try and build a product and launch a product in the middle of a global pandemic was actually quite challenging, right? And I'm playing that down a little bit. But we launched the product last year, and then our office, we're a hardware product, so software we can be remote. But hardware, people need to be there, touchy-feely building it, right, and designing it. And that had challenges. One person gets COVID and the whole office is out, right? So we go down 2 weeks in a row. and then with the knock-on effect of COVID was global supply chain issues as well, which we're still seeing now, right? So our product was a little bit later than planned coming out to market, and that was just a massive challenge, but we got through it. But yeah, we're still, the company's actually been around for quite a while. It needed a reboot and a restart, which is when I was brought on board and my chairman was brought on board. So that's 2 years ago. So, but yeah, we're doing okay. It's quite incredible, actually. It really is.
Well, you're not doing okay because you're doing a bit more than okay, really. I mean, you've won the Tech Trailblazers in the cloud category, which is one of our most subscribed to categories, along with security, and some of the ones are rising stars in that regard. And you mentioned you've also bought, picked up another accolade as well. I mean, how important are those types of things for the team, for you? I mean, you obviously entered for a reason. It wasn't just one of Victoria's crazy moments where she thought, hey, let's divert some thoughts, and put together, what we consider is a bit like a VC pitch light, kind of. That's what we tend to ask you to put together on the basis that most startups will have that material, but also it's what we should be judging you on.
Yeah.
But how important is that type of third-party recognition for you?
It's fantastic, obviously externally, but you'd be shocked internally as well. When you're developing a product, 99% of the company are engineers. And sorry, my head of finance is now pinging me. So 99% of the company are actually engineers, and for me to be able to go back to them and say, look at what we just won. And look at the work that you've done, and taking a great idea and turning it into a real product. Because a lot of companies, it's easy to have a great idea about a product, but turning it into a real product is an art form, both from an engineering standpoint, but also from an operations, manufacturing, and distribution standpoint. And for me to be able to go back to the team and go, look, guys, look at what you've done. That's it's a great motivator for the whole company. But then obviously, externally, we market the crap out of it as well. It's on our website. We did a press release, blah, 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 right? It's just really good validation that what you're doing is making a difference, is different, and we're innovating. And, as a startup, you've got to be innovating because you're competing against established companies and other companies that are trying to do the same as you. So to try and break out of that noise is hard work. You've got to execute well, and you've got to have a lot of luck as well. And to win awards like Tech Trailblazers is just fantastic. It really is. It just helps that credibility with the industry. But also, I never overlook what it does to the people internally as well. That's, to me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, because it is hard being in a startup sometimes, and certainly this year has been particularly challenging for everybody. So, all support and recognition is very valid, very valid. Very well.
Absolutely.
So, well, hopefully we'll see you again in the future. We're ramping up in June, so I'm sure Victoria will be putting that into her calendar. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else that you'd like to go through before we wrap up for the viewers and listeners?
I don't think so. It's been a hell of a year. I think none of us, all of us have lived through this past kind of 14 months, right? Since the world went into lockdown. And so therefore we've just got on with it, and we've had to. Obviously history is going to look back at this being literally an historic moment in human civilization. It's just been unbelievable. But we've been able to get through it, and I want to thank my team because I'm very, very lucky that I've got great people around me that do great things. This job is I can look back at the last couple of years, but especially being a first-time CEO is not an easy job. Everybody thinks CEO, you get overpaid, etc. When we were out of money, or we're not out of money when I was fundraising last year, but COVID hit. I cut the entire company's salary by 20%, and I cut my own by 50%. And I paid back the entire company. It was so nice paying them back when we got the money, when money hit the bank. But without in this job, it's a hard job. It's a very lonely job. But if you've got a great team and great people around you, which I'm so lucky I do, both working in the organization and then people that help and coach me when I have no idea what I'm doing, which I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Hard Things About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz, but there's a chapter in there called The Struggle. And he said they polled about 100 CEOs who all confirmed that they have no idea what they're doing 80% of the time. And it just made me laugh. It's so true. But you know,
I'll say no comment on that one.
it's very, I'm just very, very lucky. So, you know, I'm very, very lucky. I've got a great team, got great people around me, and you know, I've got a great family supporting me as well. So, you know, let's see what happens over the next 12 months.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you continued success. We do look forward to welcoming you, and I'm sure we will keep in touch.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're over, hopefully we'll get an opportunity to meet in person.
Great. Be fantastic. Thank you so much, Rose. I've enjoyed this.
No problem. Well, thanks again, Tony Craythorne, who is the CEO of Bamboo Systems, our Cloud Tech Trailblazer winner last year. And thank you everyone for listening or viewing. And you can find out more about the Tech Trailblazers at www.techtrailblazers.com. See, I'm not perfect, and or follow us on Twitter at TechTrailBlaze, no R, no S, or find us on LinkedIn. Thanks again. And I'm Rose Ross. I'm the founder of Tech Trailblazers. And thanks again to you, Tony.
Thanks, Rose. Take care.